All right, so the first thing I thought would be useful for you guys is to have a look through these previous examiners' reports. And the reason why that is because your section of the course, crafting texts, is it's not the same as the previous study design, but it's actually quite similar. So if I just scroll up here, you'll see when VCE started, I think it started in 2006, they had this original curriculum, which went till 2016. And then the English curriculum got changed out in 2017. And from 2017 to 2023, they had a different one. And then now I think the issue was they got sick of people memorizing comparative responses. And so they kind of basically went back to the previous study design with your section of the course, your section B, crafting text, which is based on the writing in context thing. So the bad news is you can't look at the previous 6 study design examiners' reports for feedback. But the good news is you do have 10 years of ones prior to that, which kind of go over the same aspect of the course. So the sample exam for year 12 this year wants you to create a written text. I mean, no surprises there. You have to have meaningful connections or ideas, so good ideas based on one framework of ideas: protest, personal journey, play, whatever your school's doing. You have to use the title and you have to use at least one piece of stimulus material. And they want you to do at least one of the following: explain, express, reflect, or argue. And then basically they just want it to be, well written, which is, again, no surprises there. So in 2016 and the previous years, the criteria were actually quite similar. Extended written response. You've got to mention what context you're doing. You've got to use a title. And then back then, they didn't have frameworks of ideas, but they had contexts, which some of the contexts were actually focused on identity and belonging, which is actually quite similar for anyone who's doing personal journey. What they wanted was people to draw on a mentor text. You guys don't have to draw on a mentor text anymore, like directly, but your ideas should kind of be like loosely informed by what you do in class. And it could be expository, imaginative, or persuasive. And your piece as well has to have a clear purpose. It's either explanatory, expressive, reflective, so that's like the imaginative aspect, or argumentative, persuasive in some way. So as you can see, like the elements of the course are actually pretty similar, what they had then and what you have now. So it's reasonably instructive to have a look at the feedback that they gave those people then, particularly with respect to what they say about imaginative pieces, because I've had a lot of questions this year so far about the expressing and reflecting aspects of the course. So to that end, we will have a quick look through what they've said, and I'll just highlight a few key points because I know with most of you, I've kind of gone over these things in a little bit more detail previously, so we don't have to do so again today. In particular, what they note as good things from students is an insightful response, which means good ideas, good use of the prompt, good use of mentor texts, if depending on like the degree to which your school wants them to be used, and then integration of other materials or like your background knowledge. They had a couple of prompts: the imaginative landscape, whose reality, encountering conflict, and issues with identity and belonging. So if you're doing personal journey, or maybe even if you're doing play, it might be worth having a look through and seeing what they say specifically about those responses on those topics, because you can use that to directly sort of inform what you write about. But what I want to show you is just a couple of key things that VCAA seems to really like. So the first one is a distinct view. What I think seems to have been picked up in the previous examiners' reports as well, and also by feedback from teachers whose students have already gone through at least the first part of the SAC, is they want some kind of particular tone. So I would recommend writing one piece, if you haven't already, drafting it multiple times, and making sure that it's got a cohesive tone throughout. So that's the first thing. And then the second thing is tailoring it to the prompt. So this paragraph here from the 2016 examiner's report, I think, is probably the most useful thing for working out what you guys want to be doing this year. So apart from a confident reading of the core meaning of the prompt, high-scoring writing was determined by the way the ideas were developed. To what extent did the students explore? So what your teachers and what VCAA are looking for is that you can get to the heart of the prompt, which is why I think it's really useful to do some practice stacks, and which is why I've got some sample prompts for you guys today. Because every time you get a prompt, you should be looking at what is in the heart of all the different stimuli you've been given and trying to work out what ideas relating to protest, play, personal journey am I supposed to be tapping into. Okay, and then the next thing was highest scoring pieces have complex ideas. So if I've been drafting a piece with you and I've been saying this is a core idea, we need to expand on this more, or this idea is a little brief, we need to kind of get a bit deeper. The reason why I'm doing that is because if you work hard at finding niche ideas or niche interpretations on the prompt, niche takes on your particular issue, those will be seen as more complex because they take more time to think about. So if you're able to work out like fundamentally why this thing you're saying is true or is not true, you will do better, basically. And then the last thing that's useful from this paragraph is that the pieces which were most high scoring responded to the prompts in an assured way. So confidence. Basically, that goes back to this thing, like the distinct view, having a particular tone that you're following through, and being really like comfortable with your arguments. You don't want to be kind of making stuff up on the spot, which is again why the drafting is so important. So it's worth reading through these different examples that they give. And in particular, I'd recommend having a read through this one because this was a lower scoring example. And as you read through it, you can see that the ideas are really not quite as developed as the others. And what I mean by that is they kind of read a bit like a BuzzFeed article or like a ChatGPT piece in the sense that they're really quite surface level. So just so that you don't have to go back to it later, we'll skim through it now. Although it can be really tough figuring out who you are and who you belong to, once having realized that, it helps give a bit of closure. So first question, like closure as to what, and what does it mean, like who you belong to? Are they talking about a particular group? Is this your family? Like unclear. By understanding who you are through acknowledging the group you belong to, spelling, you will go through life having a better view on things. So again, like what does it mean to have a better view on things? What things are you feeling better or worse about? And will have joy in doing what it is you enjoy doing. So again, like this doesn't really mean too much. It kind of feels a little bit like it was sort of computer generated or not too much thought went into it, which is different to the other pieces, which if you read through are really quite directed. There's a particular tone and there's a particular argument. And it's not even that the argument has to be groundbreaking. It just has to be niche. It just has to be different from what other people are saying. All I wanted to show you from the 2016 report, and I'll just quickly take you through the 2015 one as well, because there was one thing that I wanted to show you regarding creative writing. Okay, here we go. So most pieces of writing that people did in the previous years were expository, which I think makes sense because I think the best way to approach crafting text is with some kind of expository or like informative response, like something that shows you can make an argument. All right, some of the imaginative pieces were successful, but those that did little more than tell a story without exploring the ideas of the prompt were not successful. So this is the key thing I wanted to highlight from 2015 because I've seen a couple of people write really fantastic, expressive, reflective, descriptive pieces that detail events of a protest or a personal journey or like deep inner feelings about experiences with play or voice or something like that. But the issue is if you don't get to the heart of the prompt, then they're not going to give you marks for it. And I went through all these reports today, and one of the consistent things they said was, and I think this is why a lot of schools are kind of suggesting people write expository pieces in the exam this year, is because a lot of these imaginary pieces, like imaginative pieces, they probably were written well, but they didn't tap into the heart of the prompt. And so what I'm recommending you guys do is when you write your pieces in the SAC and in the exam and when you practice writing pieces, practice writing arguments because realistically, like it's the easiest way to respond to the prompt. All the prompts always invite you to have a particular view on something or a particular argument. So even if you end up writing a reflective or an imaginative piece, really make sure that that piece explores some aspect of the prompt.